It's hard to imagine with all this snow that we have a water problem. Stick with us and I'll tell you all about it. Okay, if you've been with the channel for a bit, you've seen that we've had to fight to get water. We've had literally challenges with the county, asking for water rights. We've made sure that we've put in several thousand, probably upwards of 7,000 linear feet of irrigation lines into this property to irrigate about 1.5 acres of property. We also have two now. I'm going to share that with you in a minute here. We have 2 ponds that we're going to use to support all of this. When we built the reservoir, it holds about 375,000 gallons. It's very good. It's very clean water. Good water for us to irrigate with. Doesn't plug up the system. We do have a filter on it, but we don't really need it. It's not overly contaminated water. Other than the fact that it's an open source, so therefore it has debris that flies in. Obviously, things like frogs and what have you, tadpoles end up living there. So there are things that do get into the system. We do have a filter on it, make sure that it's not going into the irrigation heads. But what we found this last year is you never have enough water. Irrigation takes an incredible amount of supply to take care of those hot summer months. We do see upwards of 100 in this area. We have a very high UV factor up here in North Idaho. So during the summer, you can get pretty burnt out real quick. And if you're trying to maintain a lawn, that's difficult. So with that, I'm going to tell you right over my shoulder here is right there in that big tree and beyond is the reservoir. And I'll show you in the flyover here. That is beautiful. It works great. I'm happy with it. I'm so excited to have it on the property. But as I just said, we just did not have enough water to run the irrigation. So as you can see the creek running behind me, and now the new development. The pond that equates to about 520,000 gallons. And today's video and the next one will be about how we built that. Because there's also a little special treat right here. It's called a spillway with a waterfall. Anyway, let's go into it. Start off with how we started this literally 5 years ago, unwittingly. Over here by the spillway, as you can hear it trickle past me, you can see the expanse of the pond. Like I was saying before, the pond is running about 500,000 gallons. If you do the measurements, it's called 120 by 115 feet, 5.5 feet deep. I'll go through some of that discussion here in a bit as we go through the video. But as you can see right here, that's the intake of the creek coming in. And as we span across, here's the spillway in its active form. I know I'm giving you the conclusion before the start, but as you can see here, right up over my head is the waterfall and what I'm calling, at the moment, calling Triton Falls. So, yeah, I'm actually quite excited about this. It filled up way before expectations. I think some of that was just simply due that this year we had a lot more precipitation with rain. We did not have, this is actually what you see in the white behind me, is the first snow of the season of any consequence. Most of it's just been a dusting. So it's kind of exciting to share out in this beautiful, you can see it, it's just can't be any cleaner, and it probably won't be any cleaner after this, just the nature of how it turns to mud and what have you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and dive into the video of how we made this, why we chose this location as the choke point. You'll see it in some of the drone flights as I fly over this space, over the different time that it was, this concept, started last year or should I say about 16 months ago, when we put in the smaller pond and kind of a sediment catcher. It was small. We knew at the time we were going to go bigger. We didn't know how big and how much more water. This last summer proved that we needed a lot more. So as I title this video, I'm sure I'm going to say something along the lines of need more water, and that's exactly what has been the demand of all this. Didn't have this vision up front, but it's I'm very glad I've actually done it. It's quite exciting. So let's dive into it. Here we go.
Instruction I think running through how that area looks. It was about 40-50 feet wide, and obviously perfect for a damming situation where the walls around it are just lifted up and perfectly set for a dam and a spillway. That's obviously the original pond that we had built there last year. Thought that would be a temporary state until we thought through it completely and what we were looking at. Obviously it did serve some bit of the purpose, and as you can look eastward now into that same gap. There was actually a utility road from left to right there, which I will continue to use and expand upon, thus the abutments that are there in place to build a bridge across. We'll get there in a future video. So as I'm spinning this around, I'm going to go ahead and give it a pause again and give you some definition. So obviously top to bottom, it's pretty cool. If you go to the very top, you see a kind of a rock formation there, dirt. Those are piles that have been built up there by us over the construction period that we're going to go ahead and push into a corner. All that hill behind it gives it a natural barrier. So we have a natural dam to the north, natural to the northeast. To the southeast is the gap in which we're going to put the dam, and then there's also the dam to the south. So we actually have built up the shorelines in that way because it was all already formed. So we're going to primarily put our efforts into just digging downward and then putting that material up into the dam. So it's a really kind of a blessed situation, winning from all directions. So let's get into the actual first steps, which is the cleanup.
As I stand in the long shadows of the pine trees here, right next to the pond, I have to admit something. I busted 2 shear bolts. One of the things that I've experienced on this property is when the ground is hard and mounded and you can't see it, man, I tell you, that clay is like a brick. So when the blades hit it, boom, there goes the shear bolt. I went through 2, didn't have any more. So vacation plus a couple shear bolts. I'm back into action today. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is trim up this area, do a little DR work as well, get that completed, and get us set up so that we can trim up, skirt up some of these pine trees and take down a couple of them, unfortunately. And get ourselves set up for the next weekend when we're going to start this dig. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get to work. This little pole saw, so easy. have all the tree trimming done for now. I'm going to go ahead and grapple away all the debris, take it up to our burn pile. I would normally burn it right here on location so I don't have to do all that haggling. But I can't burn until October 20th, only October 5th. So basically, it's got to get out of the way for the construction that's going to happen next Saturday. So that's the way that is. I'm going to run it back and forth. All wrapped up here. I've got all the piles picked up, ready to go, burnt back to the burn pile. So we are set up for success here. I'm going to probably have Ron come in with the skid steer brush hog just to take care of a couple more things. It just can't get to them without a lot of tedious work. One of the things I did want to show is right here I have trimmed back such that you can see in front of me here how the road is going to go through, right through here. Okay, and my finger's blurring it out. But basically straight ahead is how the road's going to go through, and that's where the bridge is going to go. So yeah, we're ready to go here. Some trimming to do, but for the most part all the trees are pulled back and skirted up so that you can get by and do your job. So yeah, looking good and ready for the next step. We've started the dig for the pond. It's looking like we're going to be able to scrape off that top layer of vegetation and get that pushed into the hill and make it really easy for us to start doing the dig. It's all about what kind of dirt we come up with underneath this dig. If it's sandy, rocky, not good. If we can come across some blue clay, fantastic. If we can just get clay, good. So it's about that in the next couple of days here as we start to form. Ron will be challenged with putting that vegetation off to the side, then finding the difference in the soil. And if we come across the blue clay, push that off to the side, dig the rest of it, and then layer that clay back in. So there's a bit of steps here that we're going to have to go through. starting to shape up as Ron's starting to tear into it. Very short period of time. He's been at it for about a couple hours, and you can really start to see what is ultimately going to be the pond. Pretty excited to watch it all come together. It'll obviously take a couple more days of working through this, with the cap off being the waterfall that comes out the back end, all the things that are kind of going to make it a little bit sexier than just a pool of water. To our bottom point here. This is going to be about 5.5 feet deep out there. At the end of it, in the middle, 5.5 feet, and that's it. So we might get to 6, but let's stay with 5.5 for the measurement purposes. So yeah, it may be formed today. Of course, the detail work will be over the next several days. Okay, after some calculations, it looks like we're going to get out to about 175 feet by 150 feet by about 5.5 deep. Okay, if you do kind of that calculation, taking in some grade into the 1/3 dam walls and things of that nature, you're probably looking at about 600,000 gallons. So if you combine this with the 400,000 that are up at the reservoir, okay, you've got yourself about 1 million gallons, which is exactly what I'm permitted to get. So I'm maximizing my yield, and we're also going to find ourselves with an abundance of clay dirt, nice topsoil to work with, so we should be able to build a fine dam here. In fact, I might end up a little bit too much dirt, which is a new problem for me to have, because I don't normally have that problem. I normally have to pay for it. So it's going to be interesting where we're going to put all of it. Okay, Ron is harvesting the clay that we're going to want to put up against the dam to make sure that we have that pretty well sealed. He'll track that in to the dam area and make sure that that's pretty tight. We don't think we're going to have many problems because there's not a ton of rock. I mean, there's rock, don't get me wrong, but we've got enough clay and dirt and everything to kind of seal it up, and I'm kind of figuring we're in good shape there. Solidifying the dam itself, and then once this is completed, we're going to go ahead and cut the 7-foot opening and set ourselves up for time to map out the spillway and get ready for our precast to be set today. That's probably the bulk of the day. The remainder of the day is just putting in the precast, get it kind of locked in place, and set ourselves up for success for tomorrow. So we got to get our lines, our drop, our depth, everything lined out 100% here. Cut the swath through here. It's going to be about a 14-foot swath. Each one of the precast are 3 feet deep. The middle spillway is a large bridge actually. But ultimately, so then we'll rock underneath that thing and get it all perfectly set up for the waterfall that's going to come off the other side. The pond, for all intents and purposes, is done. It's built. There will be a need to cut a pipe into the bottom of the pond area, an intake valve, so that I'm going to run closer to the reservoir so that I can go ahead and pump out of this to fill up the reservoir. I'm estimating somewhere around in July, into July, you know, that I'll need the water demands again to come in 150,000 gallons, suck it up to the top and get it for the irrigation for the property, which is basically what the reason for the pond is. Okay, the sole purpose of this pond is to help us gain up there. I'll use a trash pump that's on the pump in and pump it up over the hill for 2-inch line 100 feet away. On the pump, really good to sit on the bottom. It's that much closer to the ground to suck up any of the dirt. So with that, let's move on.